Hello there, and welcome to What If, where we take an idea and create a blueprint for a possible upcoming video game or additional content for a pre-existing game. Today we are looking into the possibility of an additional DLC chapter for Dead by Daylight based on the Remothered series, a small group of stealth horror games from the mind of Chris Darrell. In this imagined chapter, we will be coming up with a new location, killer, and survivor that would be going into the game. Location: the Ashmann Inn, a rustic hotel owned by the Ashmann family. The Ashmann Inn was once used as headquarters of Rosso Gallo Farms, who oversaw the nuns who harvested their fields. After a horrible fire took the lives of the majority of the convent's inhabitants, Stefano Ashmann rebuilt the property with the intention of using it as a resort hotel. While in the process of converting the hotel to its new purpose, orphan girls from the Flemington Girls Institute were sent to the inn to work as maids in preparation for its grand reopening. However, when a young Jennifer was sent to work at the inn, she found that things there weren't as they seem, and in the process of her attempts at escaping the inn, she found secrets behind another horrible incident, after which the inn was closed, seemingly permanently. While the inn still stands, it remains largely forgotten by all who are unaware of the terrible secrets that lie within its walls. Killer: Gloria Ashmann, the nun. Gloria Ashmann lived an unfortunate life, horribly abused by her brother as a child. She was seemingly saved when she was sent to the Cristo Morenti convent with its small cloister. There she took solemn vows and would hope to live out the rest of her life in peace. Unknown to Gloria, however, the owner of the plantation, Richard Felton, had come down with an unusual illness. The physician looking into Felton's illness, Albert Wyman, noticed that the Lepidoptera moths that had been brought over from Egypt on a business venture reacted strangely in Felton's presence. To investigate this, Wyman decided to use the nuns as test subjects for an experimental variation of the drug phenoxyl, using moth parasites to hopefully increase its potency. Around 1970, the nuns in the convent all became very sick due to the intentional contamination in the farmlands that they cared for. Wyman told the nuns that they were chosen and that their sickness was a sign from God. They continued to develop various symptoms from the drug, including painful ulcers, abnormally high insulin levels, as a proliferation of parasites from the moths made their ways into the nuns' system. As their sickness progressed, most of them became nearly blind due to a newfound sensitivity to light, and many more were driven to madness. Another unusual side effect of their infestation was that they were able to influence the Acherontia moths that were common in the area. Gloria, in particular, seemed to have one of the strongest connections to the moths, and was able to not only influence them, but the other nuns as well. This all came to a close when someone piped an inflammable liquid throughout the pipes in the convent and set it ablaze. Gloria, being one of the few survivors, was sent to the Ashmann Inn, where she was placed in the sights of her brother once again. This tragedy was compounded upon by Wyman, who arrived there and attempted to gain control of the Acherontia in her system through hypnotic suggestion, an attempt that failed and succeeded in a way, and led to everyone at the inn being stuck in a constant loop of pain and misery. Eventually this cycle would be broken, and Gloria would take the opportunity to try to regain control of the moths, as well as those connected to them. But Gloria would be forced to watch as her world went up in smoke again. and the seeds of resentment and hatred that had been planted through her life began brewing inside of her. She would vow vengeance on everyone who harmed her, everyone who doomed her on this path of suffering. That woman, she would pay most for what she did. Time passed and she would seek out those who caused her pain, and thus found herself in the employ of Richard Felton. One day he had a visitor, and upon opening the door to his opulent manor, Gloria saw her, that woman, Rosemary, as she called herself now. She would pay for what she did. Gloria redonned her old habit, and after grabbing Wyman's old cane, found that she was ready to stalk her prey. Rushing into the hall of the manor, she found herself shrouded in a black fog before she was elsewhere, somewhere familiar yet different. The Ashmann Inn? No, this wasn't truly that place. She knew that. However, it seemed fitting. She would cleanse Rosemary Reed and any damned soul who gets in her way. The nun's special ability is Moth Swarm. The Red Nun can send out a swarm of moths which will quickly make their way to the closest survivor. The swarms move steadily at a 100% movement speed and can go through windows and over pallets. If a survivor is hit by the swarm, they will continue to pester the survivor, reducing their movement speed and suffering them with a hindered, oblivious, and exhausted status effect, as well as reducing their repair and healing speed while they are on them. The survivors can remove the moths in two ways. One is by performing a repel action, which, after a prolonged channel, will cause the moths to disperse. The other is by another survivor shining a flashlight on the moths or setting off a flashbang or firecracker near the afflicted survivor's location. Doing so will also cause the moths to disperse. Survivors can interact with other objectives, including working on generators and unhooking survivors, but if the moths remain on a survivor for too long, they will do a health state's worth of damage and cause the survivor to scream, revealing their location. The nun also has a passive power that slowly builds up through the match. Getting into a chase or having a swarm interact with the survivor will also increase this buildup. Once it has fully built up, the nun will be able to swap out her main weapon for a flamethrower. This nun may not be fond of this weapon, but she cannot deny its usefulness. The flamethrower will take a short channel to charge up, and afterwards it will spew flames in an area of effect cone in front of the nun, as long as the power is active. For every second a survivor remains within the flame spread, they will receive 1 health state of damage. The flamethrower can instantly down a survivor if they are currently in the exposed status effect, and the flames from the flamethrower can also passively burn down pallets that have already been laid down. If a survivor attempts to vault a pallet that is currently burning, it will extinguish the flames, but will also do a health state of damage to the survivor. After she has taken the flamethrower out, the power gauge will continuously decrease. Once the power gauge is empty, the nun will automatically put the flamethrower away and swap back to her normal weapon. The nun's first perk is Time's Up. For those who would push forward while letting others pay the price for their sins, will pay the price. If a survivor is left on the hook long enough to move from one hook state to another, without a survivor entering an 8-meter radius of the hook, then instead of going into the struggle phase, the nearest survivor will lose a hook state instead. If the nearest survivor is or has been in chase with a killer for longer than 5 seconds during this time frame, instead it will go to the next closest survivor. This perk deactivates if the killer remains within a 16-meter radius of the hook for longer than 8 seconds without a survivor entering that radius. The nun's second perk is Backlash. You do not attack the Red Nun and expect to get out unscathed. If a survivor stuns the nun with a pallet, she will gain a 15% speed boost for up to 10 seconds. This perk does not stack with Bloodlust. The nun's final perk is Hex, Blasphemy. Those who would bring power to wield against the nun must be punished with Hex, Blasphemy. Anytime a survivor attempts to bless a totem, the totem will explode, breaking the totem and injuring the survivor 1 health state. If the survivor attempts to bless a totem that is a Hex totem, including Hex Blasphemy, the totem will put the survivor in the dying status instead. If a totem is broken due to Hex Blasphemy, the survivor who broke it will not get a token and perks such as self-healing. Survivor, Rosemary Reed, the deceptive investigator. Fascinating, smart, and resolute, Rosemary Reed is a mysterious and ambitious woman looking into the disappearance of a missing girl, Celeste Felton. Her investigation led her to the home of Celeste's parents, Richard and Ariana. She approached the Feltons under false pretenses, attempting to interrogate Richard about their missing daughter, but her ruse was quickly seen through. In an attempt to find out what happened to Celeste, she managed to sneak back into the manor, and she was determined to find the missing girl. Sneaking through the house and avoiding Richard, Rosemary was not prepared for what she would eventually find. Now trapped in the situation she put herself in, Rosemary will do anything that she can to escape, hiding from Felton as she discovered the mysteries behind what happened to Celeste, as well as uncover secrets from her own past. She eventually found that not all was as it seemed, and Felton was not the true mastermind of the events taking place. Instead, she came face to face with the Red Nun. As she fled and stuck to the shadows to keep herself out of sight, something began to itch in the back of her brain. Something familiar, but why? She never had met Richard Felton before. She had no idea who the psychotic nun was that was hunting her down, right? She felt like the answers were on the tip of her tongue, but damn it. Everything was so unfair that she would be cursed with this faulty memory. As she strained to get her fractured mind to work properly, she failed to notice as a thick black fog enveloped her. As it did, her mind cleared, but she knew that this boon was not without a price. She may be able to think more clearly, but her situation has grown even more grave. She now has new allies to rely on, and new enemies to escape from. But until she finds a way to be free of this place, her true goal will remain forever out of her grasp. Rosemary's first perk is Glancing Blow. Rosemary has been through enough trauma to know how to shrug off blows that aren't lethal. If Rosemary is injured, and a killer hits Rosemary the same time she drops a pellet on them, successfully stunning them, she'll instead get deep wounds applied to her. After this is done, the perk will go on cooldown for 120 seconds. Rosemary's second perk is Boon, Hush. Rosemary knows how dangerous it can be when you make unwanted noise. With Boon, Hush, all survivors within the Boon aura will become completely mute, making no vocal noise. This includes breathing, grunts of pain, and screams. Rosemary's final perk is Deal with the Devil. Rosemary is not so innocent and can deal with hostile individuals. With Deal with the Devil, if the killer remains within a 32-meter radius of the hook for a period of time without another survivor entering the radius, this perk will activate, turning Rosemary's aura on the hook from red to white. At the end of her current hook stage, instead of progressing to the next hook stage, the entity will instead take her off the hook and transport her to another part of the procedural. Afterwards, the perk will deactivate unless the same requirements are met again. That's it for this episode of What If. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let me know down below what you thought and what if chapters you might like to see in the future. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters Jack Freeman, JTG, and Cornick. If you would also like to join our small but growing group and help support these videos, you can do so by following the link down below. Stick around for a quick preview of the next episode. And with that, I thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Little girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pines where the sun never shines. We'll shiver the whole night through.
Look at you, hacker. A pathetic creature of meat and bone, panting and sweating as you run through my corridors. How can you challenge a perfect, immortal machine?